resiliency seeps through just even when you're sitting here talking, both passion and resiliency. But are you somebody like that? That of course is a trait most wrestlers embody. I grew up in Southwest Pennsylvania, wrestled until I was 13, and then I'm 6'7", so I had to give it up at some point, which was
Yeah.
probably my dad's most disappointing day because he was a huge wrestler. But definitely that's a trait that you just see come through in wrestlers. But for you, I mean, you've put in now a 2-decade career in the UFC. Did you have to get super focused on things like nutrition, like your training performance, or were those things like were you able to kind of just bulldog it and be like, no, like I'm going to maintain kind of my way of doing things, or to maintain your longevity, did you really have to get into kind of the more or even get a little more like technical with using technology, sleep, nutrition, or have you been able to kind of maintain what you've been doing from the start?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a combination of both. At first, when you start in a professional sport, we don't have a whole lot of resources, that we have, that are, they're pretty expensive, or we don't have them yet. You know what I mean? As far as uh, the recovery that people have now. Um, I remember I would work out, 3 times a day, and I'd be driving back and forth from Northern Illinois down to Gilbert Grappling. So actually, I think it through a typical day back then. This was still when my brother and I had started fighting, and we were not in the UFC yet. So my brother was in the uh, Masons Union, Bricklayers Union, whatever, and I was in just getting the Chicago Carpenters Union. So get up 4:30, out the door, drive an hour to the job site. I would sleep in the back of my truck. I had a little Chevy S10 Durango, and I had a cap on it. So I would sleep there. I would get there long before everybody. I would sleep for about an hour because I wanted to beat the traffic in the morning. Sleep in there. Next, I had my alarm set for, 6:45, get up, form would be pulling up. We roll our tools out, work a full day, whether it be the freezing, cold winters, or the freaking super hot Indian summers where it's 90, 95 degrees and it's 105 at the heat index. And after that, we would drive down to the road, or we would drive to Harper College, which is where my brother and I wrestled at junior college. We would go wrestle with the team for an hour, wrestle live with them. And then from there, we would jump back in the truck and we would drive down to Mokina, Illinois, or Tinley Park, Illinois, which is where Gilbert Grappling was at. And we would go wrestle. That's when we would have our MMA practice. So we would get there at like 7:30 at night and sitting in traffic, man. A lot of times my brother and I would switch off because he would get done working, laying bricks, and I would get done swinging a hammer. So either he would sleep in the back of the the pickup, and I would drive, or vice versa. We would just switch off because we were still beat from our day, and then we got to rally, go practice at 7:30, train till like 9:30, and then drive back home another hour and a half or 2 hours. So it was just kind of that good vicious cycle. We didn't know any better. All my brother said was, "Hey, we're going to train at Joey Gilbert's, at Gilbert Grappling with Danny Gilbert, and the best wrestlers and the best fighters in the state of Illinois." We didn't care about any of these other gyms. We dominated all these other gyms that were local in the Chicagoland area, in Indiana, in Minnesota, in the Midwest. We beat them all. Whenever our team had to fight those guys, we would smash them because all we knew was that wrestler's mentality, that wrestler's grind. And so that's what we were sold on. But yeah, fast forwarding, but as when I fought Strike Force, we won that title there, and fighting all over the world, and then we got into the UFC. It was still all I knew. Was all that we did. Drive all over, train our asses off, go back at night and sleep. And I noticed, you kind of get banged up a little bit, but it was just always, kind of almost like that meathead mentality. We don't know any better. It's not broke. Shit, don't fix it. I don't do no doctor stuff. The only time that we went to a doctor is when we'd have to do our pre-fight medicals for a big fight, whether it was a Strike Force or the UFC. Doctor said, okay, all the blood work came back negative, everything checked out. Cool, you're in the cage. But as the sport evolves and you see all these other phenomenal athletes like the George St. Pierre's, uh, the Anderson Silvas, the training that these guys that, at Team Alpha Male were doing, which is where, I train at, the guys at Jackson's, which is where I trained at for 5 or 6 years, they were, they had different recovery systems, so I kind of, started, doing those. I started doing a lot of kettlebells, man, which has been a staple in our training. You guys know, I'm sure you guys do a lot of kettlebells in your training as well. Just implementing those is it's so functional to mixed martial arts, to your daily, you do daily chores, things like that, heavy lifting, how to lift with your with your legs, not your in your lower back, not your back. So it was just putting those things together, and then once we had more resources available to us, like a nutritionist, I did hot yoga a lot. It's super good for recovery, super good for breathing. You lose weight when you're in there. Um, Massage therapy, doing the cryo freeze chambers, um, chiropractic care. Once we had those resources available to us, I utilized them, and I still do now. And that's what I think, has given me the longevity, just evolving in how we recover. And I didn't used to do that as much. And during some camps, you'd be a little bit more sore than that, than other times, the other weeks in training. And when you're doing an 8 or 10 or 12 week training camp, whatever it may be, there's lulls in it. There's ups and downs in it as far as how your body feels. But we always want to train 1,000 miles per hour because that's all we ever know and how we wrestle and how we fight.